I'm always open to being proven wrong.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
Many times we make predictions on this show where, frankly, I hope I'm wrong.
Agreed. Yeah.
And you would, you would think that I would be surprised when I woke up this morning, or even, I saw last night that the government wasn't going to shut down. Mm-hmm. And I saw Republicans celebrating, like, look, Republicans can get it done. They kept the government open. They found a bipartisan deal. But again, you'd color me surprised when I noticed that the government shutdown has been staved off, but only for 45 days.
That's right. It seems like maybe perhaps we're entering a field similar to that of, was it last year with debt ceiling talks, where guys, we gotta pass a debt ceiling. We have to extend the debt ceiling by June 1st or everything is fucked. You're gonna fucking die or something if this debt ceiling bill doesn't get passed, but we're actually gonna extend it for 2 weeks.
Well, and to be clear, breaching the debt ceiling would be catastrophic.
It would be, yeah.
But the fact that we can just kick that down the road, similar to how we can kick a government shutdown down the road, does kind of just make it seem like it's all theatrics.
Literally.
And I don't blame people for tuning out when they see all of that, because they're like, government shutdown impending October 1st, it's going to happen. And then they pass a bill that's like, oh, well, it's going to happen actually November 17th, 45 days from now, unless we pass the bill. Same with the debt ceiling. They're like, we've got until June 1st, everything's shutting down. Just kidding, it's actually end of July. Just kidding, it's actually December.
Yeah, just kidding. We just passed a bill and now it's like 2 years later, so we can worry about it then. Oh, just kidding.
Yeah, like government shutdown's a real thing. The threat of the debt ceiling being breached is a real thing, but it's all just silly when politicians are playing like super hardball up until the very end, and then a bipartisan deal is passed. Doesn't really change anything.
It's like,
yeah. The one thing missing from the deal that did just pass, and it was bipartisan, it got like 88 votes in the Senate, I think almost 400 in the House or something like that. The one thing that was missing was Ukraine funding, which Biden said he's going to try to push for.
Okay.
And then they did get extra relief funding for, I'm guessing, New York City, because it's underwater right now. And maybe Maui, maybe some other natural disasters that are occurring at the moment. But I mean, it seems to me like nothing really stands out. Kind of a bog standard budget, nothing really changing. Mm-hmm. Unlike what the Freedom Caucus wanted, where they wanted assurances that like the FBI is no longer going to exist.
Social Security is gone, dead in the water.
The border's going to literally become like a war zone, more than it is already.
Turrets on the border, gun stations, gun boats patrolling.
Yeah.
We're gonna carve a river throughout the United States just along the border and have gunboats run through it 24/7.
Yeah, and I was looking forward to talking about the effects of the government shutdown. I was going to make a joke about how the federal government can't do a money spread, but we can. But now I don't get to make that joke.
Said, oh, I'm making more money than all the federal employees combined right now. I can't do it.
There was this the video that was released that showed Jamal Bowman pulling the fire alarm.
Was that the vote that he was trying to?
And tons of people are saying that he pulled this fire alarm in an attempt to delay the vote so that the government shutdown would happen. But to my understanding, he pulled the fire alarm in a different building. It was an office building. It wasn't the Capitol. He wasn't like in the House of Representatives. He wasn't in the chamber pulling the fire alarm.
Why'd he pull the fire alarm?
So I don't know how it could be that he was trying to block a vote from happening. What he said was that he was trying to go out an exit that's usually open but was closed and said emergency exit only. And there was some confusing signage about hold the fire alarm for the door to unlock. And it just, I guess maybe he was in a rush. It didn't make sense.
Yo, what?
I don't know if what he's saying is the truth or if he's just like dodging the question here. But I don't like it. Everyone's saying this is such a big controversy. I don't really think it's that big of a deal. In fact, I think it would be a lot cooler if he did pull a fire alarm to try to block the vote.
Say, honestly, I guess I fucking drank the Kool-Aid. I thought he did pull the fire alarm to delay the vote.
He was in a different building. How could he have delayed the vote?
I thought he was in the building and just pulled the fire alarm at the Capitol, whatever. And I was like, cool. Sick.
Well, I was immediately skeptical because I'm like, what Democrat is brave enough to ever actually do that?
Yeah.
Like, what Republican is brave enough to ever actually do that?
And it's also like kind of a meaningless thing to do that in of itself because like you delay the vote.
Yeah.
All right.
They're going to vote anyway.
They'll come back in 2 hours when the fire department gets there and everything's cleared. Well, it's not that big of a deal. And I had seen, it was End Wokeness on Twitter who got on there and he's like, I cannot believe Jamal Bowman just did this to delay a vote from our lawmakers in Congress. He should be locked up just like those Capitol rioters were. And I'm like, whoa, buddy, this is quite the massive leap that you're making here. I don't understand. And I saw a bunch of people make that leap. A bunch of people said that this is akin to pulling a fire alarm, something that like class clowns in high school do is akin to storming the Capitol on January 6th. Like, come on, brother.
How can these be the same things? You know what I mean? Like, obviously, even if, let's say Jamal Bowman, his intention was to delay the vote.
Yeah, he was malicious.
Even though he was in a separate building that wasn't where the voting was taking place. Let's say he was trying to delay the vote. How was that the same as like an organized attempt to murder Nancy Pelosi and Mike Pence?
One man acting by himself, pulling a fire alarm.
I think he went on to vote in favor of the budget anyway.
Fucking ridiculous.
Yeah,
the way that conservatives can just sensationalize anything. And people will eat it right up. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah, but I guess we have a budget for 45 days, so expect the next, 4 podcasts.
Yes,
to be about the federal budget and what's being passed, because we'll have to keep covering it because our legislators kicked it down the road. No choice, really.
It's just like Build Back Better when we first started for all the OG Hito heads here.
That's right. Yeah, and also at the same time as the government shutdown was impending, although it's not anymore, we got our first set of impeachment inquiry hearings.
Really,
Republicans were asking questions. Democrats were asking questions.
To who?
And the witnesses they brought in, I don't know exactly who they were on record saying that there is no firsthand evidence that President Biden has committed any of the crimes he's being accused of. Cool. So that's pretty sick.
Under threat of perjury, they got up there and they said, that sounds good to me.
Yeah, and one of the Republicans that are on the panel in the impeachment inquiry was asked questions by the media, MSNBC, I think, and they were like, okay, but is there any direct evidence that Joe Biden did this? Like, can you prove to us that he did this while he was either the vice president or the current sitting president, and he just said he couldn't do it?
Nice.
Which is awesome. I think that's sick. It's just a complete waste of time.
Fuck yeah. This is good. This is good. I love it when this is what my tax dollars are being spent on.
Yes.
I love it when elected officials, people who are supposed to be serious, are the most unserious people I've ever heard in my entire life.
Mm-hmm. Just admitting there's no evidence. They're just doing it for fun.
That's good.
Love of the game, really.
And I love that, frankly.
Yeah.
Frankly. And I guess if we're to shift gears a little bit and talk about the passing of Dianne Feinstein.
Oh.
I tried to find, when I saw that news sitting at work on Friday, one, I was not blown away for obvious reasons. And I was trying to think up a crazy take about this, like, oh, blah, 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 yada, 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 old people in the Senate, like old people making laws. And then I realized the take here, she's 90.
Yeah.
She's 90. It's not a surprise that she passed away. She's fucking 90. That's it. She shouldn't have been in the Senate in the first place.
And it's almost the same critique that we would have had with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, right?
Yeah.
Like, she was occupying a position of power. Of course, she was a Democrat and was voting along party lines for most things. But her being so old, she was
also kind of barely a Democrat.
Well, yeah, she was fairly conservative, right, for her position. But her being so old jeopardizes the process of the Judiciary Committee right now, because we're not going to be able to get a Democrat to fill that spot because Mitch McConnell's not going to let it happen. We got a 50-50 Senate right now. We're not going to be able to appoint a Democrat to replace Dianne Feinstein, even though Gavin Newsom will appoint a Democratic senator, so we won't lose the one vote majority that we have with Kamala Harris. But yeah, she was fairly conservative, and there's a ton of things throughout history where she may have been progressive for someone that was like, kicking in the 70s.
Yeah.
But nowadays we would have considered her, for all intents and purposes, like a bog standard moderate centrist.
Yeah,
maybe.
like a Joe Manchin type.
Yeah.
But it's also like, I don't know, retire.
Yeah.
Just retire.
Yeah.
Unless you're Martin Scorsese, he can keep kicking. He can keep doing things and making movies. But when you get that old, Brett, just get out.
Yeah.
Go spend time with your grandchildren.
She didn't have to. She should have just stopped after her or at her last election. She shouldn't have announced that she was running again back whenever her last race was. Should have just let somebody else take the reins, live out the remainder of your life with the millions of dollars that you probably have, doing whatever the hell you want, celebrated as a hero of the liberal movement throughout the 70s and 80s. That could have been you.
Fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Fucking stupid. Was she even around in the 70s and 80s?
She was the mayor of San Francisco at one point.
She was in the Senate for, I think, 30 years, right? Mm-hmm. I feel like you shouldn't be able to enter the Senate when you're 60 and be around for 30 years. you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it's just a frustrating situation.
Well, it's like Dianne Feinstein, Mitch McConnell, Chuck Grassley, even Joe Biden and Donald Trump are prime examples for why we need age limits on all elected offices at the federal level, or even at the state and local levels. Like, we should not have people that have one foot in the grave deciding what policy will be for decades and decades.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be the case. They should not be deciding the world that we are going to live in.
They quite literally have no stake in the things that they're going to do. They have every incentive to just do what's best for them and what years they have left and the people around them, and they'll just die and they won't have to see the consequences of anything that they've done.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't think you should be that old and be in the Senate, and that's really just the take.
No, yeah, it's infuriating. Why are people that aren't going to be around to deal with the consequences of their actions deciding policies for literally everybody else? Like, why am I going to have to deal with the fact that for years and years and years, I'm going to have to, or our generation is going to have to handle whatever mistakes Mitch McConnell and Dianne Feinstein and Joe Biden or whoever else have made. Like we're dooming ourselves. It's a gerontocracy. It's bad.
It's a bit silly.
Yeah.
It's a really bit silly.
Yeah. Also, there's like tons of examples of Dianne Feinstein like being conservative on immigration or LGBTQ stuff or,
Oh, we got some conservative takes on immigration coming up. Let me tell you once we get into the show.
So anyways, past age limits, we need those, even though the people in power aren't going to do it. Median age in Congress is like 68 or something.
It's just like past retirement age.
It's not going to happen. I don't know, smoking on the pack, I guess.
It's like as soon as they had to put that like veil over her head during that one vote, you should have known. You should have known something was coming around the corner. Like, it's sad. Obviously, somebody died, but like, man, fuck.
What are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
Welcome back to Head in the Office, everybody. We got some debate coverage coming at you right now. After we get past the intro, of course. We also got to talk a little bit about what Donald Trump did, his little propaganda campaign he did near Detroit, not in Detroit. Yeah. Preface that right now. And we got some other news stories coming at you. Quite the packed week with news politically. I didn't expect there to be this much news, but upon looking at what we had on the agenda, I realized this is a lot.
It's a lot.
Got a lot to cover.
It's a good little bit. A lot of debate news to talk about for all the people, especially who didn't show up on Wednesday when we were live covering it.
Yeah, very upsetting. I don't know what you were doing. I get it. The first debate it was a tough watch, the first debate, and I'll be honest, it was a tough watch, the second debate.
Tougher, but most ways.
It makes it easier when we get through it together.
Of course.
But we'll go through it today for those of you that missed it. And if you really want to watch our live stream replay, you can go find that on YouTube.
So basically what I'm getting at is like, y'all don't fuck with community.
Yeah, you don't fuck with us anymore?
Y'all don't fuck with us no more. Y'all don't like community, building strong ties, whatever. Whatever.
If you want to help out the show, of course, I would tell you to go over to patreon.com/headintheofficepod. Get early access to all of our content. The people over there make the show possible. It's the only reason we can do it.
There's a reason week in and week out in the studio. What can I say?
It's the reason we can do live streams. We can do other fun things.
And my belly's full.
Exactly.
That very important part.
So head over to patreon.com, Head in the Office Pod, and help us out a little bit.
Come on.
Give us a little something. You can also check us out on YouTube, Discord. It's all in the description below. And if you want some merch, headintheoffice.com. Get yourself a t-shirt. Get yourself a hat, a pair of stickers, something nice.
Yeah, if you want to support us not just purely out of the goodness of your heart and you need something in return.
Exactly.
Go to headintheoffice.com.
It's a good way to support the show and keep your favorite content creators afloat.
That's what I'm saying.
The one other thing you could do if you don't want to spend any money is leave us a 5-star review on Apple. And we got one to read off today.
Yes.
It's from Domingos, from TikTok friends to Hito Head. They say, "Hi, Jeremy and Gage. I find your podcast through TikTok. While I am usually of the opinion that cishet white men simply should not have microphones, I was intrigued and stayed to listen to the video." We're one of the good ones.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I did. I've had to do a lot of driving, and Hito's wit, commentary, and cunning, yet deep-seated care and empathy for BIPOC and LGBTQ plus communities, both of which I'm a part of, have been welcome company. I'm sorry, I'm struggling to get through
Hito's
this
wit and cunning is crazy.
Yeah. Honestly, I just moved from my first post-college grad school job, and you both feel like my first friends here. That's crazy.
Wow.
That's a crazy thing.
Because we are.
Exactly.
Frankly.
Real friends, non-parasocial. I'm quickly catching up on the backlog, and I wish I'd found you when I was in college. These Ivy League bros can make fascism sound like poetry, and I feel better equipped to debate rather than disassociate with your podcast. Thank you for being my white boy stands, and I can't wait to be an official Hito Head and Patreon member when I'm not poor. Keep it up. All the love from M.A. Evan. P.S. Your page actually friended me back at Blackademics on TikTok and liked my video about Vivek being a model UN kid. Blackademics is a nice informational page. Go follow him on TikTok if you haven't already.
Wonderful TikTok. And
shout out.
How do I phrase this? I apologize that you had to formally associate with future members of the Bohemian Grove.
Yeah. No, the Ivy League schools are real demon factories.
Yes, they are.
Like if we're being totally honest with ourselves, as we're growing up, we're obviously taught to like revere institutions like Yale and Harvard, et cetera. But all they really do is just produce the worst people on the planet.
The more I grew up, really, the more I stopped caring.
Well, yeah, and it's like you got people like Ben Shapiro and Ted Cruz, et cetera, that went to these Ivy League schools, and they're always talking about liberal indoctrination. Brett Kavanaugh. They were talking about liberal indoctrination at Harvard and Yale, et cetera, but It clearly didn't work on them.
I wish it would have. Yeah. I wish it would have. I wish we had the liberal indoctrination you're talking about.
I wish the indoctrination was a little bit stronger, but instead these institutions are just creating the worst people on the planet and giving them power.
Ted Cruz's great mind is what allowed him to think through it and break the mold.
Yeah, that's got to be it.
It's got to be it. Come on.
Moving on to the news.
Yes.
I got to start off with some debate
I'm
coverage.
going to get straight into it.
So last week on Wednesday was the second GOP debate, as we mentioned, and it was a slog again.
I'll say, like, the first 30 minutes had me hopeful.
Oh, yes.
The first 30 minutes were gas.
I thought we were in for a wild ride when, like, the main white British dude on Fox News mispronounced the name of the person from Univision. Ilia Calderon, I think was her name, Colombian immigrant. He couldn't pronounce her name, so he was just like,
he just stopped.
I thought we were in for a treat.
That was crazy. I was feeling gassed up because when we were making the bingo card beforehand, I called it. I knew they would start with like a Reagan montage beforehand.
Right, yeah.
I was like, oh, there we go. He mispronounces the one ethnic name there. And then
well, not even, because he struggled to pronounce Vivek Ramaswamy the whole time. He kept saying Ramaswamy.
He mispronounced the two ethnic names there. Yeah. That's 100%, baby. Come on. And then they start going off with like fire questions, like off rip, and we were getting great answers. They were so catty. The back and forth was it was amazing. You could feel the tension in the room. It was palpable.
Yeah.
And then shit fell off quick.
And the setup of the stage with the airplane over top was just corny. Like I thought it was super cool. Some people liked it, but like it is corny.
It's a fucking airplane and a chopper like right next to it, looking at him.
Yeah.
I don't understand how you can stand on that debate stage and take yourself seriously when you're looking at that.
Well, I think just like we did last time around a month ago, we should go candidate by candidate.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Bar for bar, if you will.
Discuss performance, bring out some highlights, maybe listen to a couple of clips that we've got that we've got prepared for this show. So let's start off with the guy that was in the middle, Ron DeSantis. I thought he did better than the first debate, but the bar is incredibly low, below hell, one might say, like, whatever's down there.
I wish I could say Ron DeSantis the man of the hour, but he's not. No. Every time he gets a chance to, like, I don't know, perform, make himself a standout in the GOP race, he just falls flat on his face.
Yeah.
And he just doesn't. He's been wholly disappointing ever since he launched his campaign.
Yeah, he's had nothing good.
Nothing good has happened. Nothing interesting. Nothing fucking funny, even.
Yeah.
Unless, like, you're making fun of it.
Like, he's tried to sell himself as, like, the smarter, more effective Donald Trump, but he's never critiqued Donald Trump, although he did try to say, like, you should be here. But he didn't really sell that effectively. It was just kind of a throwaway line. And I think that was the first time he spoke after, like, 16 minutes of not saying anything.
That's true. And that night on the debate stage, he had made a tweet right before it, too, like a video tweet, was the most fervently he's attacked Donald Trump this whole election cycle. And it's like, dog, you're a little bit behind now.
Yeah.
I hate to break it to you.
And even if he wasn't, like, even if he had the time to make up ground before Iowa in January or February or whenever it's going to be, it's like that isn't, like, that's a decent message, but you got to make it a little bit stronger. You can't just say, like, oh, he should be here, he should tell his message too, when everyone's already made their mind up about Donald Trump. Yeah. You got to tell people why he sucks if you want to win. But he's not capable of doing that, right? Because he wants to sell himself as the smarter, more effective Trump, but instead he's a version of Trump without any of the charisma and all of the fucking cringe.
It's so wild how liberals will campaign, or at least in like 2020 and 2022, a little bit less in 2022, they will campaign on, hey, I'm not Donald Trump. But Republicans just want to be like, I am Donald Trump, but you shouldn't elect Donald Trump because somehow I'm a better version of Donald Trump without any of the charismatic bits that you like.
Well, and that's the thing is, like, they got all of Trump's policies. None of them are separate from Trump's policies except for what we'll talk about in here. But even then, they can't really distinguish themselves from what Trump wants to do politically. So how are you going to make an argument that you're better than Trump? You're not as messy. People love the messiness.
Yeah, like that's what's fun about
That's
him.
what they like him for.
That's what they see. They see themselves in that part of Trump.
Even with all of that being said, though, it's hard to nail down DeSantis on how his performance will be graded by voters, because first time around we said all of this. This is kind of a similar critique that we had of him back then, because he did even worse the first time around, and voters still pegged him as the winner. And I don't know if that's the case here. I haven't seen any polling data about it just yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if GOP voters put him on top, given that he performed marginally better than last time around, and last time around the bar was below hell.
I wouldn't be surprised, especially because, like, what, Haley was the standout?
For sure.
Vivek didn't really do anything this time around. In fact, I think everything that he did only served to hurt him.
He was countered every time.
Yeah, he was countered every single time. And the moments where he got to, like, say something on his own, he just kind of sucked.
Yes.
So, and I also know there was I want to say New Hampshire poll where Nikki Haley pulled ahead of him, and he went from 6% to 3%.
Yeah,
like his campaign's kind of tanking now from the looks of it, and he's not doing anything to help himself.
I had seen David Pakman did some debate coverage, and his prediction was that he basically fumbled his campaign here. Like, this is it for Vivek, which I mean, I don't know if that's true. Like, debates don't necessarily end or I guess start campaigns. But this could be it for him because it was a bad performance overall. Mm-hmm. But we'll get to Vivek.
Yeah.
A couple of the things that DeSantis did that I enjoyed was the Homelander smile.
Yes.
And
gritting his teeth at every turn.
I love the Homelander smile. I think it's perfect. I think who's the guy that plays Homelander? Whoever plays him does it perfectly.
Fuck, I don't know.
And DeSantis is imitating it very well. And then the "I was in the military" quote. Two things that were on our debate card that we got, by the way, that we clocked before it happened. He said that. And then apparently after the debate, he did some one-on-one interview with somebody, and he called for a 1v1 debate with Donald Trump.
Bro is going to sink his campaign first with the gruesome Gavin Newsom interview in November 30th, and then with the debate with Trump.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
He's going to get Newsomed. It's going to be bad.
Oh my goodness.
Especially because I don't know if you caught any of this, but Newsom came on CNN and Fox News with Sean Hannity after the debate and was just like dogging on both of them.
Really?
Yeah, he was just like, people were asking him like, how do you react to DeSantis saying this about the state of California? Sean Hannity was trying to bring up some facts about energy independence that didn't work very well. And Newsom defended both of them pretty easily with like obviously I'm not a Gavin Newsom head. Lots of problems with California, lots of problems with Gavin Newsom's policies, but as an orator, he's pretty good at what he does.
Yeah.
And he made the point that we are still energy independent, as we can talk about a little bit later.
And that's honestly the only thing that's important when it comes to debates like this. As we talked about while it was live, there's no semblance of any fact checking that goes on there. All you have to do is just talk good. And that's the one thing you need for people to perceive that you won.
Yeah, it's all about the conviction with which you say things, no matter how wrong they actually are, because the moderators, as they proved, will not fact check you. Even when like the Univision lady brought statistics along with like the fentanyl question, which we'll get to a little bit later. Like you'll bring statistics. Obviously, you know what the facts are. You can fact check them, and they just don't do it for whatever reason.
Yeah. And then other than that, I can't really remember any standout moments DeSantis had. I remember there was like an argument between either Nikki Haley and Vivek or Nikki Haley and Tim Scott where DeSantis was just kind of talking in the middle.
Yes.
And you couldn't hear him, but the camera made sure to show that. It was good.
He must have had some polling or advice come from his campaign staff. They're like, you just got to talk more.
Yeah.
And then he did it. And he was just like yapper in chief in the middle of all the conversations.
Got talked over. Holy
The
shit.
one other thing DeSantis did that I really hate him for is he saved all of them from the island question at the end.
Okay, it was him that saved
It was
them.
him, yeah.
That shit made me so mad. Like I said, I had wanted that Dana Perino asked them something like in Survivor, if there was one person on this debate stage that you would vote off the island, as in vote off of the primary ticket, who would it be? You have paper and pen. You can write it down right there.
And show it.
And I was ready. I wanted that more than I've ever wanted anything in my entire life.
Yes.
It felt like I had never wanted anything.
In the palm of your hand.
How bad I wanted that in that moment. And Ron the fucking sanctimonious gets on there and says, whoa now. I have respect for each and every person who's on this debate stage. We need to come together and we don't need to do this is what Trump does or some shit along the lines of that. And he took it away from me.
Well, and here's the thing, right? I've seen a lot of people shitting on Fox News for coming up with that question because it was framed a little corny, right? But I wholeheartedly endorse what she was trying to get at, right? She's saying that right now, Donald Trump's not on the debate stage. Mathematically, none of you can win if you all stay in the race. Some of you are going to have to drop out if any of you are going to defeat Donald Trump in this primary. So write down on your card who should leave right now to make it better for the entire party. And they refused to do it. I saw Chris Christie was getting ready to do it because he got asked about it later.
Donald Trump.
Yeah,
corny ass motherfucker.
It was dumb, but like, come on, we were so close to getting to a point that actually mattered in the context of the election, and Ron DeSantis backed him out of it all.
And it was about to be catty.
Yes,
that's what I'm here for. It was about to be catty. It was about to be good because it's like also if Donald Trump was on that stage when they asked that question, pretend that he's the underdog candidate he was in 2016, and we're doing that. If he's on that stage and he asked that question, he's he's either going to write everyone's name down or
super fast,
or he's going to say some shit like, nobody else matters. I'm writing Ron DeSantis' name down and just personally attack him. That's what he'd have done. And I wanted someone to do that so bad.
You got to remember, like, Donald Trump's the same guy who called Ted Cruz's wife ugly. Like,
didn't he call, oh God, he called someone on the debate stage ugly too.
Yeah.
He's like, shut up, you're ugly.
Yeah. Like, it's the same guy who's that, like, you need, if you want to be Donald Trump, you got to be just as petty.
Yeah.
And you can't defeat Donald Trump if you've got, in the case, let's say Ron DeSantis, if you got 6 other people, aside from Donald Trump, running against you and splitting up the remaining votes that could be used to mobilize a resistance to Donald Trump in this primary. Like, I thought that question was important. It was one of the best they asked all night, and we just didn't get an answer.
It's also crazy how they let Ron save them. Not one person took that as an opportunity to get, except for Chris Christie, who wrote Donald Trump's name down like the corny cornball he is. Not one person took the opportunity to just attack somebody else.
Yeah.
Which, why?
Or like the easy candidate, Doug Burgum, right? Like, if you want an easy way out, if you don't want to say anybody that's like, you know, polling ahead of you, if you're like a Tim Scott, for example, write down Doug Burgum and say he's just holding us back.
Exactly.
That's all you got to do.
So he's stupid. He's playing spoiler. Yeah, this guy's up there playing spoiler. Let's get him out of here.
He's playing spoiler. He's a DNC plant. That's like, or Chris Christie should have said Vivek. He clearly fucking hates Vivek.
That's the other thing too. Is like they all hate each other. They personally attack each other up on the debate stage. Why can't you just write their name down? You think that's worse than the other shit that you've been saying and bringing up? You got to be kidding me.
Yeah,
you got to be kidding me.
It's such a waste. But I thought that question was great, and I think Ron DeSantis is a coward for saving all of them.
It's just like the climate change question. He gets in there at the worst times for me.
Yes.
The worst times for me personally, and he saves them. I have personal beef with Ron DeSantis now. God damn it.
Aside from all of his, like, you know, transphobia, hatred of the working poor, all that stuff, I have beef with him for not giving me that content.
Exactly.
In the palm of our hands. Greatness, glory, even.
I'm so excited.
Salvation.
My eyes lit up. I was like, get on Christmas.
Well, moving on to the candidate that I think won the debate, if anybody did, was Nikki Haley. She had a couple of good moments. She defended against Tim Scott's attacks pretty well. She attacked Vivek as she did the first time around. Overall, had a good performance, relatively speaking, in the case of the other candidates that were on stage. But again, I don't think it's good enough to beat Donald Trump, so it doesn't really matter. Her wheelhouse is obviously foreign policy because she was the ambassador to the UN for a while. So she can talk in a way that doesn't make her seem too demonic on the topic of foreign policy. Obviously, a lot of her takes are still abhorrent, but she can speak in a way that, like, obfuscates how evil she is.
Yeah, definitely. And I think she did a good job at nailing Vivek on the same thing that she nailed him on last time. That was a standout piece of messaging that a win for Russia is a win for China.
Yep.
That was good. You know, I'm a conservative voter. That's good for me. You know what I'm saying? That's a good way to nail Vivek and take some shit away from him. That was great. The only moment where I really thought that she kind of fumbled is when Tim Scott was pressing her about the $50,000 curtains and the gas tax.
Yes.
Just because I don't think you can get up there and say, well, actually, I did do a gas tax, but it was a compromise and I got income tax lowered because of it.
Yeah.
I just don't think you can ever admit to doing something like that when you only have 30 seconds to respond.
Yeah, and again, to the point that you made earlier, it's like the forum or the way these things are formatted is not conducive to actual understanding. No. You're not going to be able to explain the nuances of policy and, like, revenue coming into your state government and federal like, you're not gonna be able to explain the nuances of all of that. But at the same time, I don't think it'll make a very good clip for Tim Scott if he wants campaign video material, because in context, even, it doesn't really make sense. Like, you're not going to be able to understand that in a 30-second clip. Like, what are you talking about?
The whole clip is 30 seconds, and you need background information to know what's going on, too. Like, when I first watched it, I didn't clock what he was talking about with the curtains, but there was some shit about the Obama's administration sent them, like, curtains or something, and the only thing I can remember is Tim Scott going, "You're hanging up the curtains. You're hanging up the curtains. You hung up those curtains." And that was good, but other than that, I didn't know what was happening.
And at the same time, it's like, Nikki Haley isn't really your competition here, Tim. Like, I get it, you're both, like, from South Carolina, or you occupied positions in South Carolina. But again, for everybody on stage, your main opponent is Donald Trump. That's who was siphoning 70% of the votes away. Everybody else on stage needs to get out of the way for you to win. Yeah, it's silly. But my favorite Nikki Haley moment,
it's a good one,
was when she said she wants special operations in Mexico, right? Which is just an invasion.
Hell yeah.
Which I thought was sick. And look, here's the point that I want to make. every single Republican primary election just turns into who can kill the most immigrants. It always turns into who can kill the most immigrants contest.
It's crazy.
And I think this was perfectly exemplified in the GOP debate, right? Because Nikki Haley said she wants special operations in Mexico, which is just invade Mexico with U.S. troops. DeSantis wants to militarize the border. So what? We're killing people that have a dime bag on them. Vivek wants to end birthright citizenship, of course. And every single candidate ducked the question about how fentanyl being brought into the United States is not an illegal immigrant issue. It's an issue of U.S. citizens bringing it in through regular ports of entry.
And that's not something that we're saying as additional background, or that part is. But the question, one of the questions that was brought up was 50% of fentanyl that is trafficked across the border is trafficked by U.S. citizens. What do you want to do about this issue?
Yes.
And they say invade Mexico.
And they pivot to invade Mexico, destroy the cartels, drone strike Mexico. Like, what are we talking about? Every GOP election turns into who can kill the most immigrants. It's crazy.
It's
even like the sane moderate ones like Nikki Haley is trying to be basically says special operations, which is the same way that Russia framed their invasion of Ukraine. Like, what are we talking about? Special operations in Mexico? Further destabilize Latin America? What are we doing?
Man,
crazy.
That shit was the thing that blew my mind the most, because I didn't think they'd hammer on immigration for, I don't know, probably like an hour.
Yes.
Of the entire debate.
Biggest topic.
Every other question came back to something to do with immigration. And while we're on the topic, I feel like we can move on to our boy.
Our boy Vivek.
Our man Vivek.
Yes.
What isn't he all birthright citizen?
Yes.
Yeah, the birthright citizen himself who wants to end birthright citizenship.
His parents came here before he was born, had him on U.S. soil, and he became a citizen, not because his parents were citizens, but because he was born on U.S. soil, birthright citizenship, and he wants to end that.
And his dad still isn't a citizen.
Right.
And he crazy, like, you're not on the right team.
Yes.
They don't like you there. I promise they do not like you there. Birthright citizen wants to end birthright citizenship. Birthright citizen wants to fucking invade Mexico. What is going on? One of my highlights from his performance specifically was when he said, there are tunnels under the, we don't just need a wall. There are tunnels under the border that are just semi-trucks can drive through them. Semi-trucks of fent just getting across the border to come into your Halloween candy.
What do you... No, there's not. Like, I couldn't find any evidence of this. I think he just made it up.
He 100% just lied. I will not believe that. I refuse to believe that happened. That motherfuckers could just dig down there and dig fucking holes big enough for semis to come through that we just don't notice. What are they doing? Putting a bush over it? What the fuck is going on?
Yeah, I thought Vivek did a lot worse than last time. I think he came across as a liberal for sure. Vivek being a liberal was not a spot we had in the bingo card, but maybe we should have, because I think he spent like at least a quarter of his speaking time saying things like, let me talk, stop speaking over me, it's my turn to go. Like, that is shit that no matter, it doesn't even matter if you were actually being talked over or if it's like disrespectful, never looks good.
You can be the coolest motherfucker on the planet, but as soon as you get out there, no, you're interrupting me, you're done, so get out.
Yeah, I feel like the only way you can really respond to that is by saying like, you're running away with the point because you're not confident in your actual arguments. But even that, I feel like only works in like a one-on-one debate situation and doesn't really work when everyone's looking for sound bites and it's just like you get a 15 seconds to respond. Yeah, they're dogpiling you. Like, there's really nothing you can do other than wait your turn. You can't just saying like, you can't keep saying, let me speak, let me speak. It doesn't work.
No, hear me out, especially when you only have a minute to speak anyway, which I swear they did not have a minute on those timers. It felt like so many people were going on longer than when they should have got dinged out.
Ding,
ding. Ding, ding, boy. Ding, ding. Shut the fuck up. But anyway, I also loved every time he raised his hand.
Oh, yes.
Because he would just raise his hand with this stupid smirk on his face. As if the teacher was going to call on him to give his fucking magnum opus right here, deliver his dissertation, defend his thesis. Like,
I think it was like every question he raised his hand. Even when he wasn't called on, it had nothing to do with what he talked about before. Completely separate question, and he just raising his hand wants to respond.
Actually...
See, and my thought was like he must have had some polling or got some advice from staffers that was like, people don't like how smug you were in this first one, because he seemed to try to tone it down. But then, he kept raising his hand over and over. Like, nobody wants to hear from you that much, dog.
Come on,
it's crazy.
Man.
Moving on to Tim Scott.
I think we can move on to Tim Scott, yeah.
Our analysis of Tim Scott will be short because he didn't have a banger like break the backs of the teachers' unions like last time. That was the best line I think I've ever heard him say. He did have some okay moments fighting Nikki Haley, but again, it was so complicated that I don't think it'll translate into any good campaign material. And I don't think ultimately it's going to come across to any voters for Tim Scott. I think Tim Scott's going to stay firmly in the 4% polling range.
Overall, I think Tim Scott did better this time than he did last time. I thought he talked more and said more things that, like, I don't know, made sense, if make sense is a word you can use to describe any Republican policy, especially the ones they were talking about on stage, invade Mexico. But overall, I don't know. He just kind of talked more and made his presence more known. Mm-hmm. Maybe he just took over everything Asa Hutchinson Rip was supposed to get up there and say.
I miss Asa.
I know. I wonder what he could have said. I wonder how bad he wanted to invade Mexico.
Must have been real bad.
Uh-huh. Maybe he's doing it right now, and that's why I couldn't have been there. He'll pull up to the third debate. He qualifies somehow.
Doug Burgum's gone. Ace's back. That would be sick. Come on.
Ace has a massive comeback. He's like, when I was down there in Mexico City, I was going crazy.
I guess then we could move on to Chris Christie. And I think I want to play a clip that I think perfectly summarizes Chris Christie's performance throughout the entire debate. I think this clip will, if you missed the debate, if you don't want to go back and watch our VOD of it, then this will give you a perfect summary of Chris Christie's performance. And I don't really think it needs any other introduction. I don't want to frame it any other way, prime you in any other way.
Exactly.
Just take a listen to this.
I want to look at that camera right now.
Let me restart it so you guys get the full experience of this. You got to hear the whole thing.
In context, like you did.
And I want to look at that camera right now and tell you, Donald, I know you're watching. You can't help yourself. I know you're watching, okay? And you're not here tonight, not because of polls and not because of your indictments. You're not here tonight because you're afraid of being on the stage and defending your record. You're ducking these things. And let me tell you what's going to happen. You keep doing that, no one up here is going to call you Donald Trump anymore. We're going to call you Donald Duck.
No! And he does it with the crazy smirk, Bray. He thought he cooked.
He was so close to an important critique of Donald Trump that would maybe break across to some voters and get them to move away from Trump. And then he fumbles it by saying Donald Duck.
Donald Duck.
He was
Donald Duck.
Whoever signed off on that Donald Duck joke needs to be fired, barred from politics, maybe even in jail, because that was unacceptable. You can't do that.
And it's also crazy considering that Trump was not watching. Mm-hmm. Everyone knew he did a rally instead at the same time. Like, dog, he was not watching.
It's easy to hate on Chris Christie because Republicans do it because he's attacking Donald Trump. No Republicans really like him. Mm-hmm. Democrats and liberals and leftists can do it because he is a Republican himself. But he's so close to a point that actually matters.
Yeah.
That can actually maybe get across to Donald Trump. And then he hits it with the Donald Duck. And all seriousness goes out the window. All potential for any real critique of politics in the modern age goes out the window. And the only thing anyone's going to think about from that is the fact that he said Donald Duck. And it was corny as fuck. You got to do better. We got to do better.
I feel like the only things I remember from Christie are that, and then when one of the moderators asked him a question and said, in 2013, you said that immigrants should be tracked like FedEx packages.
Yes, that was perfect. I didn't know he said that.
I didn't either. It blew my mind, though.
Oh, my God.
Holy shit. The fact that you could say that to describe, like, human beings is crazy.
Uh-huh.
And then you can have it brought up to you 10 years later and not, like, walk back on it, but say, actually, we can't now. We can't now because of, I don't know, X policy.
Because of the wide lanes that trucks are going through underground below the border wall.
Basically, yeah. They don't know about those, though. They're secret.
The other thing that Chris Christie did that I thought was significant was that he was hating on Big Teacher.
Oh, my.
Saying that Big Teacher had captured the Biden White House because Biden is sleeping with a member of the teachers union, which is a crazy way of getting mad at a dude for fucking his wife at night.
Yeah.
But, I mean, go crazy, I guess. It's just like, it was such a weird framing, like, oh, the president's sleeping with a member of the teachers union. Like, it's his wife, dog. What do you mean?
And it's like, I don't know. I might have to skip ahead a little bit to somebody else for a second. But as soon as this dude got the chance to speak after Chris Christie said that, he smiles in the camera and he goes, well, I've been sleeping with the members of the teachers union for 38 years. And that person was Monster Mike Pence right there.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Bro had to throw that in there. He's a dog.
Violently homophobic, perhaps closeted gay himself, Mike Pence. I threw that line out there.
Someone who I know doesn't do anything regularly with his wife.
Yeah, it's just like Chris Christie overall didn't have like a bad performance per se, but it's not great that his most memorable lines are wanting to track people like packages, the Donald Duck thing, and then the thing about Joe Biden sleeping with a member of the teachers union. Like, those are the things people remember your for performance for. You're not being the guy that like takes out Donald Trump like you said you were going to be.
And overall being a liberal.
Yes, being a liberal.
Being a liberal. That's his worst sentence, really.
Especially being a liberal, because the last critique I had for Chris Christie's performance, I hope you're taking notes, Mr. Christie.
Yeah.
Governor Christie. Governor Christie. He railed on Trump for increasing, and this was kind of a common thing among Republicans at the GOP debate. They were railing on Trump for increasing the federal deficit by $7 trillion over the 4 years that he was in office, 7 or 8 trillion. And of course, this is true, but the problem is Chris Christie and other Republicans supported him doing that when he was doing it. You know what I mean? And the lion's share of the increase of the federal deficit came from tax cuts, of course, which is like trillions of dollars. And then the rest of it came from the COVID spending that you had to do, otherwise the country would have collapsed. Like, we had to spend the money on COVID. We had to spend the money on stimulus. Otherwise, people would have just been dying left and right, even more than they already were. And my problem here is, like, how can you criticize him for increasing the deficit by $7 trillion when you were there either supporting him or in his administration working with him to make sure that happened? I don't get where this critique is coming from.
Glazing the shit out of him the whole time.
You were there, dog. Chris Christie, like, you worked for Donald Trump, brother.
You were part of this.
Yes.
Like, this is also what you did, which is another thing that I guess we could transition over to Mike Pence about. So many things that Mike Pence evoked throughout this debate and the last debate are things that he did with Trump. That's not an argument for why you should be the president over Trump.
Yes.
Especially when you're the VP.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, but so many people just evoke these things that happened under Trump and say, well, I could do it maybe a little differently, and it could be better, but maybe.
Yeah, that's why I genuinely feel like most of these Republicans would just have, like, again, bog standard average Republican administrations. No real deviation from what conservatives typically do. No wholesale changes. Maybe even not as close to what Donald Trump brought along with him. Just like basic Republican governance, which is really bad. To be fair. But all these promises that they're making, it's like you're not even distinguishing yourself from him. And all the critiques you have of Donald Trump are just things that you agreed with him on 6 years ago.
You just agree with him a little less on those things now.
Speaking of Mike Pence, though, should we play the clip of his best policy prescription of the night?
Yes, we should.
So, quick trigger warning for topics of mass shootings. That's what this answer is in response to. But Mike Pence had I'll call it like it is. It was a banger of an answer. It was a fantastic answer.
I'm not afraid to say what it was. I'm not afraid to say my true opinion on this.
That's right. Let me cue up this clip. Let me make sure we listen from the beginning so we get the full experience. Here we go.
I am sick and tired of these mass shootings happening in the United States of America. And if I'm president of the United States, I'm going to go to the Congress of the United States, and we're going to pass a federal expedited death penalty for anyone involved in a mass shooting so that they will meet their fate in months, not years. It is unconscionable that the Parkland shooter, Ron, is actually going to spend the rest of his life behind bars in Florida. That's not justice. We have to mete out justice and send a message to these would-be killers that you are not going to live out your days behind bars.
That's crazy. Couple things here. First, even before I talk about what it was that he said there, the question was about Obamacare.
Yes.
The question was about what you would do with the remnants of Obamacare. And this dude said, hold on, I have a granddaughter. I got to get back to the mass shooting topic real quick. I just have to say my piece on this. Part two, following from what he said, they kill themselves anyway.
Yes.
I don't think any mass shooter goes out there thinking they're going to get away with a mass shooting. They kill themselves in minutes.
Yeah, no, it's a totally ineffective response to the problem of mass shootings or school shootings, right? Because I don't think there's a single person who is deranged enough to do a mass shooting that's thinking like, oh, I could be executed by the state for this, better not do it.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm going to be in jail for 2 years rather than the rest of my life. I better not do it.
They all write fucking manifestos.
Yes.
Talking talking about how they're going to do this, then kill themselves. Like, come on, bruh.
Look, none of the crowd applauded this either, so I'm guessing they knew, like, okay, this is really fucking stupid. But the gall he has, the I don't know, bravery he has to just say this strongly as some kind of policy solution to mass shootings is wild.
Like, he thought he cooked. It wasn't even like mental health. I thought maybe Mike Pence was going to say some dumb shit about therapy.
Yeah.
But no, just more death penalty. Bro is itching to kill more people.
Yeah, no, and he called out Ron saying, like, oh, the Parkland shooter should have got the death penalty, when it's like, Doug, Ron DeSantis goes and watches prisoner executions for fun.
Yeah, like, he loves that shit. He missed the Trump indictment news. His number one opponent, mind you, as the I don't know, second runner in the GOP primary, missed his opponent's big news to go watch someone get killed. I don't think that he wants more people to live, really.
I don't think anybody on that stage is like, no, I'm against the death penalty.
As if Ron DeSantis was on the jury that convicted him, but didn't give him the death penalty.
Right. Yeah.
Come on.
No, it's an interesting answer now. They're not even, again, they're ignoring the mental health thing. They're ignoring the gun control thing, as they always do, which is the real problem, of course. And they're saying, we're going to execute them, as if they don't, as if most mass shooters don't either die by police or killing themselves. You know what I mean? It's a pretty sick answer.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I haven't seen someone miss the mark so hard in a long time.
What just a great debate. I guess we can end off on the last guy. We saved the least for last.
Oh, man, I'm burgeoning for Burgum.
Doug Burgum, he was at the debate. I think we could probably move on.
He definitely was there. I really liked when, I don't know if I already brought this up, but I really liked when the moderator asked Vivek a question. Oh my God, I forgot to get to this when we were talking about him.
Okay.
One of my favorite questions of the night was when one of the moderators asked him, they were asking about TikTok, and they said, you downloaded TikTok after meeting with influencer and boxer Jake Paul. And I thought it was crazy that Jake Paul got brought up at, like, I don't know, a fucking debate.
Yeah, anything's on the table, apparently.
GOP primary presidential debate. Like, I can't win the unserious competition with the people who run this. I can't. I try really hard. You come on here and listen to me every week, be unserious. But I'm telling you right now, if we go bar for bar, I cannot win the unseriousness competition. When you bring up Jake Paul at a presidential debate, that's crazy. That's crazy. All the nail Vivek on downloading TikTok after being against it. Then he gives some bullshit answer about, like, well, we need to appeal. But he said, hot take, we need to win elections as conservatives. And we need to appeal to young voters to do that. I also want to take away their voting rights, by the way.
Yeah.
But then Doug Burgum interjects after he finishes talking. He's like, whoa, I think we should come to me. I'm the guy in tech here. We need to ask me this question because I really need to answer. And then Nikki Haley just starts talking. And then they let her.
There was I promise you, if someone goes back and watches it, there was a 30-minute chunk where Doug Burgum doesn't get to answer anything, not for lack of trying, but because the moderator said, I'm going to cut the audio from your mic if you keep trying to talk over other people.
They said, I'm not going to ask you questions if you keep interrupting like this.
Yeah, and that was the main takeaway I had from Doug Burgum, other than him being a Doug scare, a jump scare.
Yeah.
Every time it switched over to him, he kept saying, like, oh, I just have to jump in here. No, you don't.
I kind of hope he makes the next one.
He's funny.
I kind of hope he's there for the next time. You know what? It's like when you start telling a joke, it's funny, then it gets unfunny, and you just keep telling it, and it gets funny again.
Exactly. That's Doug Burgum.
That's him, and he's ready for his vicious comeback.
I'm hoping for the Burgum surge.
Hell yeah.
Get him on the debate stage. And if we're talking other things that stood out to me from Mr. Burgum, he did the thing that Trump and other Republicans have been doing, where he blamed the UAW strike on electric vehicles, which is just to divert attention away from why the actual strike is happening, of course, which is CEO compensation, lack of pensions, etc.
Yeah.
So that was pretty sick.
Oh, overall, a running theme throughout the debate, outside of immigration and how much they want to just, I don't know, destroy the lives of every Latin American who comes across the border. Everyone somehow was able to tie every single issue back to China.
Yes.
I think there were like, Nikki Haley got asked a question about cops.
Yep.
I looked over to look at the chat for 2 seconds. I'm not processing things I hear. Then I come back and she's talking about China. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know how they did these mental gymnastics, but almost everything came back to China in some way or another.
Yeah.
It was good. And fentanyl got brought up more than I expected.
China was the big one. Fentanyl. It was really China and immigration were like the biggest players in this debate, I would say. But overall, a pretty tough watch. You got any final thoughts for the debate?
I know.
The last thought that I had, if you weren't convinced yet, the GOP primary was just a who can kill the most immigrants competition. Benny Johnson Johnson, a prominent conservative content creator, I guess you could call him, tweeted out after the debate that we should never have anyone who's not a U.S. citizen moderate another Republican debate, implying that the Colombian immigrant from Univision was not an American citizen, which she is.
Just because she had an accent.
It was just him saying, I don't want a brown person ever on the stage moderating a debate again, which is just like, all right, yep, you hate immigrants. You just say that.
Which, you know what? Maybe that's a fair position for the GOP primary watcher. Like,
if they're trying to win votes.
Maybe you know what? Maybe that's actually good, I don't know, political strategy if you're a Republican.
You think he's giving voice to the audience there
Maybe.
in California?
He could be.
Time to move on to Trump's propaganda visit.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it is, because this was the thing that we didn't get to cover live. Not that I wanted to. I don't know if you watched it.
I started and then I clicked off just to read about it.
Yep, that's what I did because, full disclosure, I watched about half of it at 1.5 speed because they didn't allow 1.75, and I just couldn't get through the rest of it after that.
He's not a two-timeser?
No, 2 times I just can't really understand it.
Okay, word.
But even if I did have it at 2 times, I think I would have ducked out about halfway through because it was a slog.
Yeah.
It was a bad watch.
Yeah,
worse than the debate.
I couldn't get into it.
Yeah. So to distinguish himself from his fellow GOP competitors in the primary for president, Trump did not attend the debate. He instead held a rally not in, but near Detroit, where he alleges that he was seeing the UAW, but in reality, he was holding a rally with non-union workers at a non-unionized manufacturing factory. But reporters actually have confirmed now at this point that some of the people at the rally were not manufacturing workers, nor were they union workers. So his rally to support union workers in Michigan that are currently striking didn't have any of the union workers there. It also wasn't a union factory. It just comes across as like a major piece of propaganda here.
Yeah, I had seen Detroit News said out of the 500 people that were there, they found one that was an auto worker. Mm-hmm. And notably, there's a lot of images going around of people with signs, one person with a sign that says union members for Trump, and another person with a sign that says auto workers for Trump, right in front of Trump speaking, like notably like, oh, look at this image, this is striking, like the support. Detroit News went and asked each of them whether or not they were a part of a union. She said no. And they asked the auto worker, oh, okay, can we ask you, like, you're a UAW member? Do you support this? He said, I'm not an auto worker.
Yeah.
I'm just holding up a sign that says auto workers for Trump. And they could just do that.
Yeah, and like I feel like if Biden did, or if any Democrat did something like this, they're cooked, right?
Hell,
That's it.
yeah.
They're fried. They're never running for anything ever again. Fox News is talking about this for months on end if Biden does anything like this. But when Trump does it, he just gets to get away with it. When he's clearly just running a piece of propaganda to make him seem like he's popular with workers, when he clearly doesn't support anything that the UAW actually wants. That is like, I don't know. I just feel like there's an asymmetry in response from the media here that isn't really fair. It's wild to me.
I think it's dumb. And I feel like we're rerunning 2016 here with the media's coverage of this. I think the BBC published an article talking about how UAW workers come out to support Trump in his rally. No, the fuck they didn't.
Nope.
Again, what, 0.2% of the rally was a UAW worker? A UAW worker that we could confirm here?
And they had 500 people at this rally. The factory that he was at, the non-unionized factory, had only about 140 employees. And the dude that got interviewed after this was the fucking boss of the factory.
Oh.
The guy who's not even a part of the working class there.
Nice. So sick. And I know it was also organized by a right to work guy, right?
Yes.
Like a Michigan right to work guy, a legislation that got repealed because it's not popular.
And it's blatantly anti-union.
And it's bad and dumb. And we hate it. But anticipating the event, the New York Times ran an article titled Trump to Woo Striking Union Members in Detroit, Skipping Second GOP Debate. I feel like that's very inadvertently Trump friendly here and kind of puts the cart before the horse when you're saying he's going to woo union members without actually seeing if he's going to a union factory, going to Detroit, where these places are headquartered, or even, I don't know, having union people there. And you're kind of just assuming that he's doing this to get union workers on his side and not to just fulfill his ego and have an excuse to not show up to the debate.
Yeah, well, I think he's trying to do the kind of populism that he did back in 2016 where he made it seem like he's on the side of the workers, right? It's all for attention. And when the New York Times posts something like that with that kind of headline, you're just fulfilling what he wants to have happen anyway.
And you're creating the narrative for him.
Yes.
Especially when pictures are coming out of the event of people with these fake signs saying unions for Trump. You're doing the work. You're doing more work for the GOP than the GOP in itself when you do something like that.
I mean, you could just call that a lack of integrity with the journalism there, but I feel like it's just like it is just lying. Like you're just lying. There weren't UAW workers there. The president of UAW, who currently on strike, Sean Fain, came out and said like we don't support Donald Trump. We don't want Donald Trump to be here. It's just like, what are we doing here?
And it's like, I get, okay, this article came out before the rally, before we knew that one fucking UAW worker showed up. Still, why are we running this headline? Why are we framing it like this? You're a journalist. You should know what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, no, and if there was fair framing here, it would be that Biden is on the picket line with the UAW and Donald Trump holds a rally where UAW members are not present at a non-unionized factory.
Yeah, outside of Detroit.
That is objective coverage. Yeah, outside of Detroit, importantly, right? That's objective coverage of the situation, which wasn't offered. And it's great. We're just repeating 2016, and we still don't know, apparently, how to deal with Donald Trump in the media. It's just
we learned nothing.
Yeah.
We learned nothing almost 7 years later, and nothing's changing.
So of the 30 minutes that I watched of the Donald Trump rally, it was all about electric vehicles.
Nice.
Just going on constantly about how electric vehicles will put people out of jobs, put companies out of business. Obviously, the EVs do have less parts, but that doesn't necessarily mean that less people will be hired. Technological progress happens all the time. It would be like saying the creation of cars is going to put a horse and buggy businesses out of business.
Yeah. And if he actually cared about how manufacturing will be lessened when we transition to electric vehicles because there are less parts, you need less parts manufacturers and all of this, he would talk about how one part of the UAW strike is to strike against plant closings, a concession that they won for EVs, and to protect workers who might lose their jobs during the transition.
Yeah.
That's one of the issues they are striking about. He could talk about that, but he won't.
Yeah.
He absolutely won't. And if he also wanted to actually think for one moment in his entire life, he could think, hey, okay, if we are trying to transition the economy to electric cars over gas-powered cars, maybe we might need to increase production capacity so that we can make that happen. And functionally maybe even expand jobs as we enter this new market where we could be a leader in.
And you would want the federal government to facilitate that change so that nobody is hurt, right? Nobody loses their jobs. And on top of all of that, we got the Marxist critique this like, okay, technological advancement occurs. Why does that mean under capitalism that people suffer, right? Like if we had a system with adequate social safety nets, a workplace or a worker-run democracy with social safety nets, then people wouldn't have to worry that like, oh, technology's advancing, I'm going to lose my job, therefore I can't feed my family. Yeah. It's more so like, oh, I can go find something else to do because it's easier now to make these cars. We don't have to be as involved in the process anymore. And it's better for the environment, which of course is the point that Donald Trump never touches on because he and Republicans don't think climate change is real.
He'll lose voters if he ever touches on that. But I do have a quote from Trump from his rally about this topic here. He said, "You can be loyal to American labor or you can be loyal to the environmental lunatics, but you can't really be loyal to both. It's one or the other." Why?
Yeah, why?
Straight up, just why? In fact, you would be more loyal to labor in the wrong long if this inevitable transition, a transition that you know is happening because like you claim, like people say, it's happening over in China, you would be more loyal to American labor if you fucking sucked it up and started producing these things here, invested in things we need to invest in here so that we can become a global leader in this new industry. If you want to bring manufacturing back to America, why don't we expand these things? Why don't we expand these American unionized parts manufacturers for these new specialized parts in this new industry that's just now popping up?
And it's not even just the creation of the car. We'd need blue-collar manufacturing jobs for improving our infrastructure when it comes to electric vehicles. We would need upgrades to there'd be all kinds of like research and development jobs for batteries as cars become improved and they want to travel longer distances. That would spur on investments in like home batteries and home electricity that is made with sustainable energy. Like there's all kinds of blue collar jobs that could spin off of this. But the way that we make that happen is with government intervention in the economy and subsidies so that we can facilitate this transition over time.
We need more electricians to make the pumps that charge electric cars.
Yeah.
Pumps isn't the right
power
word,
grid
the
upgrades would have to happen as more homes have charging spaces for their cars. Like we would have to have better investments in our power grids, which is more blue collar jobs for people to engage in, good manufacturing jobs that could be high paying and unionized if we wanted them to be.
Investing in electric vehicles is quite literally an investment into the American economy in this new era of energy.
Well, and it's the same, it's like adjacent to the right wing talk of how our industry has left, right? Which is true, right? Like we've deindustrialized. We lost a lot of our manufacturing core and it still hasn't come back. But the reason that happened is because of neoliberal politics that allowed capital to go global.
Yeah.
We released all control we had over capitalists. We released the reins and said, you don't have to do anything for the country that gave you all of your wealth. You can move offshore and go and produce where labor is infinitely cheaper than it is here in the United States. And if we really wanted to ensure that manufacturing jobs stayed here, we would have massive government investment into the creation of electric vehicles and other renewable energies, because that would spur on a massive industry that would produce an enormous amount of wealth for the middle class. Exactly. But we don't do that.
Neoliberal policy sold out the American worker as soon as they allowed companies to go overseas and exploit workers in developing nations because of the lower cost of living associated with that.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. And we can bring it back. We have an opportunity right now to invest in something that's good for the planet also.
Yeah.
And that we can bring it back and bring people more jobs. Republicans are anti-job.
Yeah, and it's just like this allows Trump to cosplay like he actually cares about it when he himself is a part of the same class that benefited from this neoliberal politics. You know what I mean? Like, and Trump wouldn't do anything to actually reverse this trend. He cut tax cuts for the same class that offshored all of the jobs.
Yeah.
He doesn't care about bringing manufacturing jobs back. In fact, there's nothing in the conservative arsenal of economic policies that would actually bring manufacturing jobs back to the country other than selling out the working class by destroying unions and lowering the minimum wage.
Exactly. No, you guys don't get it. If we lower our minimum wage to be that of a, I don't know, developing nation, then it's more cheaper and affordable to produce things over here.
Yeah. And if we wanted to ensure that wealth couldn't just leave countries whenever it wants, we would need like international cooperation to make that happen. Right now, capital in its globalized form is like an animal that's uncaged. We can't do anything about it unless everyone comes together and tries to restrain it, because it can influence government to such a high degree, because capital will just leave if you demand more for your workers, and they only come back if you sell your working class out.
Yeah.
And the only way we get it back is either by starting new industries, like with renewable technology, or if we decide to rein it in. And in my estimation, get rid of it entirely.
Yeah, I agree. And it's like people associate the decay that comes after corporations leaving and taking their investments out of a country with, I don't know, socialism instead of what it is, greed.
Yeah, well, capitalism.
That's all it is. That's all it is, capitalism.
What gave them the wealth to begin with? The socialist mode of production enriched the people that are capitalists. Yeah. Anyway, like I said, I stopped watching the Trump speech after about 30 minutes because it was way too standard. But one notable moment that I think we have to bring up because we love politics so much.
Yes.
During his propaganda visit to the non-union shop near Detroit, Trump did confirm that none of the candidates in the GOP primary will be his vice presidential pick. And I'm calling it right now. I'll put everything on this. I'll put Gage's half of the podcast revenue on this right now. Kari Lake will be the choice for vice president.
If it's nobody that's on stage, I don't know who else it would be.
It's got to be her. I'm calling it.
But I also have to wonder,
here first.
If he is going with Kari Lake, I don't know, maybe Nikki Haley would be a better pick.
He said nobody on the stage is going to be vice presidential pick, and Nikki Haley's on the stage.
Yeah, you're right. I'm just theory crafting, you know.
Of course, he could be lying, and he could just end up choosing Nikki Haley anyways. But taking him at his word, it's got to be Kari Lake. That's the only person.
If it was to be anybody on the stage, I would assume it would be Nikki Haley. But Kari Lake definitely off the stage. I don't know who else it could possibly be. There's nobody else in like. I feel like there's nobody else that is still pushing the election lie as hard as she is.
Well, I was going to say, I'll make the case for Kari Lake. Yeah. She's pushing the election lie, and at the same time, she wouldn't steal the spotlight from Donald Trump because all she does is suck up to Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure she's one of the Republicans that is like, DeSantis should drop out and let Trump win.
Really?
I'm pretty sure she's one of those. So it's got to be her.
I don't see another lane. There's no other Republican that I think is prominent enough and sucks up to Trump enough to ever be put on that ticket with him.
It's got to be her. You're hearing it right now. Head in the office is calling it. If Donald Trump wins the primary, Kari Lake will be his vice president.
Yeah, when Donald Trump wins the primary, Kari Lake will be his vice president. Yeah, 100%.
Wild card pick, Casey DeSantis. Because I'm thinking like Donald Trump, he's not going to choose someone like Mike Pence again.
No.
I think Trump may have chose Mike Pence to begin with because he was the more quote unquote moderate Republican that Trump needed to win those moderate Republican votes.
I think he needed someone who was already established in politics to legitimize his campaign.
Yes, yeah. But now Trump is very much established, and he's probably going to recognize that he and Republicans as a whole do terrible with women nowadays. So he needs a woman to make his presidential slate seem a little bit more legitimate.
Wasn't
so
part
Carrie
of
Lake's
why he lost 2020 is because suburban white women didn't turn out for Trump as much as they predicted they were going to?
Women as a whole, really.
Yeah.
But yes, suburban white women who had gone for Trump more so in 2016 switched enormously over to Joe Biden. I don't even know what the percentages were, but switched enough to the point where Donald Trump just couldn't make up the deficit.
Switched enough to the point where it's a huge fucking deal.
Yes, it's a big deal. It is a big deal, and he's got to find a way to win those votes back. But I don't see any other way it's going to happen if he doesn't choose. I don't think it's going to happen anyway, but I think he's going to try to make it happen through Carrie Lake being his vice president.
And I guess that's like his only avenue to try to make it happen. I just don't think it can work because I just think himself, he's just toxic. Like his name is toxic.
The other thing he's trying is by being softer on abortion. He hasn't committed to even a 6-week abortion ban.
Oh, really?
And he's also surprisingly been pretty soft on like LGBTQ issues.
He was going hard on trans issues, I want to say 2-3 months ago.
But I think he knows it's bullshit.
Yeah, I think so. He said that. He said straight up something like that. I remember we covered it a while ago, but it was before DeSantis had officially entered the race. When we were still talking about how DeSantis and his policies were forcing Trump right, he was saying some pretty vile things about trans people and LGBTQ people. But yeah, you know what? He has kind of died off on all that. Maybe he realizes that that's toxic.
Well, and he was asked directly by an interviewer one time, I think maybe a few weeks ago at this point. I saw a lot of like Daily Wire type conservatives got mad at him over this. They asked him like, can a man become a woman? The classic like transphobic setup. And he was just like, well, I don't know, maybe like he kind of pandered around it.
Oh, okay.
And that shows to me that I think he is hateful probably towards trans people. I think he's hateful towards the LGBTQ as a whole, but I don't think he really cares in the same way that like he hates an immigrant, right?
I don't think he gives a shit about anything, like just straight up. Because I remember there was a while ago where people were trying to nail him for like, was it allowing trans women to use the bathroom that they identify with in like Trump Tower or something? Conservatives were trying to nail him about. Like he doesn't give a fuck. He not principled in any way whatsoever. So he will go where the tides move.
He grew up as like a New York billionaire, like he's going to parties where gay people are. He knows about the existence of gay people and trans people. I legitimately don't think he cares. Again, in the same way that like he wants to murder immigrants. You know what I mean? Like he does hate immigrants. He hates brown people for sure. But I just think he is going along with like the LGBTQ stuff because that's where the Republican Party is right now. And if he strays away from that, he would lose some voters.
Yeah, Trump wants to invade Mexico, but he also wants to invade it harder than anyone else wants to invade Mexico. Harder and faster and quicker and better.
That's the Trump way, really.
That's right. We're going to do it, and we're going to do it better, folks.
Ultimately, I think optically it was probably better for Trump to go to this fake non-union rally than it was to than it would have been to show up to the debate because the debate was just a fucking mess in California. But again, I don't know if this will convince any real UAW workers because there weren't real UAW workers there.
I also don't think it's going to convince UAW workers. One, because I'm pretty sure Shawn Fain is pretty popular right now.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with the strike and with his general leadership and how hard he's trying to push the envelope to win things. And this is what Trump had to say about Fain. He said, quote, Shawn Fain is, quote, not doing a good job in representing his union because he's not going to have a union in 3 years from now. Those jobs are all going to be gone because of all those electric cars are going to be made in China. Again, why don't we just make them here? You are trying to actively neuter the processes we're going through to transition our economy into electric vehicles. Well, we could avoid this concern entirely.
The Biden bucks for the EVs are to be produced here.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what he's talking about.
It's
the
entirely
idea is to make them here. And that's what the UAW is trying to accomplish too. I don't know.
Like, I don't know how you can say he's not doing a good job in representing his union when he is arguing so hard for all these wage increases. He is winning concessions when it comes to people maybe possibly losing their jobs due to this transition. He is making sure that everyone in the union right now is taken care of.
Well, and the strike authorization was like a 99% vote, right?
Yeah.
Like it was overwhelmingly popular.
Exactly. I'm sure like, I don't know, the one guy who showed up to the Trump rally is the 1%.
Yeah.
Him entirely. It's the 1%.
He's like, yeah, I didn't want this strike. I just want to get back to work.
Exactly. He's like, I really want to go back to Ford.
Speaking of strikes, it's time to talk about one that's ending.
Exactly.
Probably. I actually don't know the full details.
No updates on the UAW strike this week, but we do have a major update on a strike that started earlier this summer.
Back in May, I think.
Back in May, yeah.
I think it's been like a long time.
Way back ago. Anyway, the Writers Guild of America strike is finally coming to a close. They reached an agreement. It will be voted on tomorrow, but it's passing. Like
Okay.
it's pretty much passing. And it's a big win for labor. It's a big win for the writers, and they're getting most of the big concessions from the studios that they were asking for. So let's get right into it.
Let's run through it. Do it.
Let's get
go.
right. I bet you want to know what they got.
I really do.
They want a 5% increase in minimum payments effective immediately, with 4% increases next year and 3.5 increases the following year of the contract, the last year of the contract. And now there's going to be staffing minimums for writers' rooms. Writers have to be kept on the show for the duration of production, which was a huge point of contention because they would just be hired in the beginning. Hey, write the script. You're off now. Fuck
Script
you.
is ours.
Go find something else. Actually come back for revisions. Now you're off now. Get off. Fuck you. We don't like you whatsoever.
Yeah, very unstable predicament.
Exactly. So that's good. And it kind of just overall helps lessen the gig economy-ness
Yes.
of the whole situation that they had going on. So that's always good. We don't, here at Head in the Office official statement, we don't like the gig economy.
No, I don't.
It's not very good.
It leads to a lot of economic vulnerability, limits your freedom ultimately in the marketplace, and just makes you a lot more susceptible to exploitation. Not that you're ever free from exploitation,
Yes.
but it makes it significantly worse, and you should not be in favor of it.
This guy gets it.
I understand,
We're
yeah.
Head in the Office and we approve that message.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Official stamp of approval.
hell yeah. For high budget streaming shows, your Star Warses and Stranger Things, writers will now get separate script fees, which is pretty cool. And a very important win, one of the biggest wins, came in the form of viewership based residuals for streaming shows. So before, the deal was that residuals from streaming shows were paid at a fixed rate model and weren't shit. I remember we talked about this one Orange is the Black actress who got on TikTok and showed her residual check for like a full year of residuals for her time on multiple episodes on the show, and it was a couple bucks.
Yeah, I had seen there was some news story about Cal Penn was talking about the strike. I don't know if you guys know, I'm just an actor.
Yeah.
And he had some Christmas special he did years and years ago, and he showed his residual check was $4. And it was like a super popular Christmas special.
Dope.
$4.
$4, bro, could get like a McChicken.
Yeah.
A McChicken and not even a fry,
Just
honestly.
nothing.
He could get a large fry, and then he's done for. That's all the residual gone.
Yeah, you get fed for like 3 hours.
God damn.
Pretty sick.
That's cool. But there are some complicated caveats when it comes to this win. The new residuals will be paid out to writers on shows and movies that are viewed by 20% or more of the service's domestic subscribers in the first 90 days of release or the first 90 days of any subsequent year that media is available. And the big red flag there is obviously that 20% is a huge number of viewers, especially when you're thinking about like a Netflix. How many of the shows on Netflix do you really think have 20% of people watching them in the first 90 days?
Yeah, that's got to be the big ones, right? Because Netflix
Yeah.
has a lot. Well,
Netflix has a lot of shit.
Netflix has a lot of shit, but I was thinking, like, do they make their subscriber number public?
That's another thing that I'm
Yeah.
going to get into in a little
Well,
bit.
and I know like the algorithms and stuff are all proprietary information that like even the union doesn't really get to know about because the algorithm they use is private business lingo that they don't want to share with anybody else because it's how they get you to watch different stuff
Yeah.
based on your preferences and shit like that. But yeah, 20% is a very high bar to clear, especially if they've got like millions of people on the platform.
Huge bar to clear. And that's where some of the criticism with this, what the studios are offering comes from here, because they also have a pretty weird and convoluted formula that they're using to try and calculate what does and does not count as a domestic view. When I read that, I thought like it works maybe how it does on like TikTok for us, where
Yeah.
like, okay, a qualified view is something that gets viewed for X amount of time.
Yeah.
Like it's not just one view, it's one person viewing it for X amount of time. I feel like that would make sense for a
Yeah.
piece of for a film or a TV show. You say,
Yeah,
okay,
huge production.
if I'm busting out The Dark Knight, maybe I watch an hour of it and I don't get to finish it. I feel like that should count as a view.
For sure.
No, it doesn't seem
my
like
God.
it is. And I don't really know how this exactly works, but I'll describe it to you. Instead, they are dividing the total number of hours streamed domestically by the total hours available in the series or long-form program, rounded to the nearest 1/10 of an hour. And that's how you determine a view.
What in the
So
world?
what I'm getting at is they are saying that a view only counts as something that's been viewed all the way through. Which is kind of bullshit, because it's like, again, if I'm watching The Dark Knight and I can only watch half of The Dark Knight before maybe I have to go do something else and forget about it, I still enjoyed that half of The Dark Knight, and I still enjoyed the writing and the labor that was put into the production of that movie, and the person who wrote that should be compensated for it.
Right.
It's not like I didn't watch it because I didn't watch the whole thing.
Yeah, there seems like a complicated way to work it out that's just going to screw over the workers. But luckily, this contract ends in 3 years. So we could just talk about this again in 3 years.
And that's what I was watching. Adam Conover has been coming on Hassan's stream throughout the duration
come on
of
the
the
show,
strike.
Adam.
Yeah, pull up.
Come
please.
on the show. I know you listen.
I'm borderline begging right now. Come explain some of this shit to me. But he was on Hassan's show kind of explaining, because I think he was a negotiator for some of the studios.
Adam improves everything.
Basically.
Not ruins.
Shit.
Adam improves everything.
But he was saying specifically, I think it was with this is just the first step. Again, he was highlighting how every 3 years they get to renew their contracts. And this is really there. He knows it's not the best win, but it's still a huge win considering that the streamers did not want to do this shit at all. And it really exists so that they have a jumping on point to sort of claw back more in the future.
Yeah.
Which I'm hopeful for.
Yeah, and considering where we started with the writer's strike, with them basically stonewalling, saying no, saying we want you guys to go homeless before we cave into anything, they made a lot of progress.
We're going to cut down trees illegally so that you don't have any shade to strike under.
Yeah. They literally said like, oh, no, we're fine. We're just going to wait till they can't afford to eat anymore. And then they'll come crawling back.
And it's crazy because they were complaining, like, we can't afford any of this. We can't afford any of this. Look at what's happening.
Yeah.
Again, every time we talk about labor, every time we talk about a strike, the corporations that are being struck against go on there and say, we can't afford this. Everyone's asking too much just to give in the end.
Yeah, just a lie.
Fucking stupid, bro.
Meanwhile, they lost however many hundreds of millions or billions of dollars while they just waited out the strike that they ultimately lost anyway.
Yeah, so silly.
Yeah.
So incredibly silly. But another problematic aspect of this that you got to a little bit ago is that streamers hold their viewership data very close to their chest, and they have total control over what they let people know about the numbers.
Yeah.
This sounds like a recipe to me for lying.
Yes.
I know,
100%, right.
If I had total control over the flow of information, that information determined how much money I lost every year to payroll, a company's biggest expense.
Yeah.
I kind of have incentive to lie about that.
And you can kind of understand, at least if we're just taking this from like a typical laissez-faire economic stance.
Yeah.
You can kind of understand why a place like Netflix or HBO Max, or it's just Max now, whatever. You can understand why a streaming platform wouldn't want to share their viewership numbers or audience numbers, because then it could, have a shock in the stock market, or it could even reveal some of their business secrets that they don't want others to latch onto, because then that would ruin the competition they have going on. But also, you would think the union should know.
Yeah, and you would think that more than 6 people in the WGA could be told this information. Because only 6 people are allowed to be told the information for the things that directly contribute to a huge chunk of their paycheck.
Yeah.
Things that help them live and make their year over year. I don't know. I feel like the WGA as a whole should be able to understand that. And if they want to audit the streamers and what they're telling them, they have to foot the bill themselves.
Right, yeah.
So they have to pay to make sure that they aren't being aggressed against.
That's awful.
Yeah.
They have to pay for the audit? How much is that going to be?
They have to pay for the third-party audit if they want to.
That's crazy.
Uh-huh.
Maybe we should just have one national streaming service, and then every show can compete individually against all the others.
See, this dude's spinning right now.
You know what I mean?
Because streaming, I'm realizing all these different it's a cable bill. It's just a cable. The whole point of Netflix, why Netflix was so cool, is you could pay like, I don't know, $8 when it came out, and you had pretty much everything. And then slowly companies started siphoning away all the good shit off Netflix to make their own shitty streaming services, just to charge you basically the same thing you're paying for on cable.
Yeah, all right. Hear me out, right? Fuck the individual streaming services. Abolish Netflix, Disney Plus, Max, Hulu, all of them gone. One streaming service.
Just one.
United States TV streaming service.
Yeah,
all of those companies can still own the shows they got. Disney still got Star Wars. Netflix still has You and all the other popular shows they got. All of those shows on the U.S. streaming platform, and they compete against each other individually. Companies still get their cut based on viewership, and workers get paid all of that. But you got to pay one streaming bill, $15 a month. Easy peasy.
Nationalize the streamers.
Exactly.
That'd be so sick.
We're done.
Honestly, you don't got to pay anything. Taxes, baby. It's the U.S. government.
Yeah, tax money pays for streaming service. It's on every TV in the country.
You could bust out their fucking U.S. TV, and instead of like the Netflix logo or the Max logo that pops up when you open it, it's an eagle that flies by the screen.
That would be sick.
It's an eagle, and he goes, "Come on!" Every time you fly by the screen, and then you can go pick whatever you want. You go, "Oh, I want to watch Star Wars. I want to watch Stranger Things. Come on!"
Got every show you want in one place. You're no longer having to keep track of what you're subscribed to. You're spending, $200 a month on all your subscriptions just so you can watch your shows and movies. No, it's all in one place, and the companies actually have to compete for you now.
And then you don't got to worry about like 30 different tiers where this one has ads, this one has ads sometimes, this one's no
commercials.
No commercials whatsoever. These are tax dollars. This is what my tax dollars should be going towards right now. As a tax-paying U.S. citizen, this is what we should be getting out of it.
Come on, tell me that's not a good idea.
That's a good idea. It is. I'm going to lay it out flat right
That's a moneymaker.
Oh my goodness, that's good. That's good. Yeah. But I guess the most, pivoting back to the strike, the most important win that the writers were able to claw out of here was historic in the sense that this is a brand new issue. They were able to make it so that streamers cannot compel anyone cannot compel the use of AI. They cannot use AI for script rewrites. They can't use AI for script writes, and they can't use AI for premises of scripts for source material.
Yeah, that's big.
The only use of AI that is allowed is if the individual writer wants to use AI to aid in their craft.
Yeah, sure.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Just like a 11th grade student.
Exactly.
Modern day 11th grade student.
Just like some people in essays in college.
Yeah, it wasn't allowed for me back then. I didn't have it available till this year. Now we use it to write the podcast show notes.
Oh, yeah. There we go. What happened this week? Even though it's only trained on data from like pre-2019.
And like Tolkien books, of course.
Oh, naturally. And they also, the Writers Guild won the right to say that writers' scripts cannot be used to train AI.
Ooh, nice.
Which I think is huge going forward. Like that's a low-key huge one, you know what I'm saying? But overall, huge wins.
Yeah, it's important for the art that AI can just use their shit.
That's
for free.
what I'm saying. So that's good. I love to see that.
Yeah.
I love to see that humans can, I don't know, not be replaced by robots in creative fields.
And it is just on a national level good to see large notorious unions have big wins against the companies. And it's in this case studios they're striking against. It's good news, and I'm very happy to see it, and I hope I see more of it. I hope this is a good omen for the UAW strike that I'm guessing is going to go on for a while, but that one will hurt the economy a lot more if it's allowed to continue.
Well, mostly this should be a good omen for the SAG-AFTRA strike, the
that's
Actors Guild
too,
strikes, because I can't lie, I was a bad leftist. I kind of forgot about that one a little bit.
Well, it got lumped in with the writers so much, but they're still on strike,
They're still on strike. Very importantly, they are still fighting for demands. I don't know. I think one of their demands is the use of, their face.
Yes.
Because studios are trying to say, hey, we can hire you one time and then we own your face.
Forever and don't have to pay you.
Forever and we'll never have to pay you again, and we're throwing your face on everything. You don't own your likeness? That's crazy.
God, Trump's always talking about shipping jobs overseas. This just deletes jobs.
Yeah.
they didn't go anywhere else. They're just gone.
This just deletes you. You live on the internet. You live in my server forever, and I own you, buddy. Come on.
In other striking news, I know there's like 8 video game studios that just authorized a strike.
Oh, really?
It's some of the big ones like Insomniac and a couple of other.
Good thing Spider-Man 2's coming out.
No, if that got delayed, I'd be hard right conservative.
You need to get back to work. You need to get back in that office, buddy.
Launch the fucking game. No, but a lot of video games are about to. Video game studios might be going on strike. They're in contract negotiations now, but they did authorize a strike back on the 27th of September, I think. So that might be happening soon.
Oh, that's interesting.
And honestly, totally warranted. The video game industry is dog shit.
Crunch is awful. I remember reading about Crunch, like, I don't know, in like high school, thinking, how do people like do that? Just people living at the office?
It's bad.
That's nuts.
Yeah, no, it's really bad. It's a horribly exploitative industry, similar to like VFX workers.
Yeah.
Because around the time when writers and actors were unionizing, these technologies didn't exist. So when video games got big in the 2000s, and at least the current conception of video games, and VFX started getting pretty big in movies, there was no like union momentum then. So all these jobs are just ununionized. Or at the very least, their unions are super duper weak, and they might be going on strike pretty soon, which is good to see because it needs to happen.
Oh, that's nuts! I wonder, like Activision, Blizzard, Insomniac, like those ones.
I don't know about Activision might be in there, but I know there's some big video game studios. Activision Blizzard needs to be struck against because holy shit!
Ooh, absolutely,
that place is just rife with sexual harassment
issues
allegations
with them before. Oh my goodness! But back to the writers. Additionally, there were some other wins with regards to healthcare. more wins with regard to pay and how/when writers are paid, new higher paid tiers of employment, as well as some other minor stuff that's kind of more in the weeds. But it's pretty good. Very big wins for everyone, and good points to launch future negotiations from in the future.
Yeah, exactly. All of this, of course, keep in mind during all of this, any strike that's happening, these workers, even if you have like disdain for the job, right? Like you think that writers suck, you don't like actors, you think like the Hollywood elite are terrible. Just know that their labor, especially the ones that are like making $30,000 a year, is producing billions in profits for these companies. That's money that they made that they're just not seeing.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I also hated Somehow Palpatine Returned, but you know what? That movie made a lot of money that they did not get to see.
And it was probably a result of writers being paid shit. Like, if you want better products, they need to be paid more and more comfortable. That's how good ideas happen.
Yeah, speaking of that, that's how great ideas happen, especially on podcasts and like in show notes and stuff. So if you want to support and help better ideas, head on theoffice.com, patreon.com/headintheoffice.
Yeah, no, we're humble.
We're humble, exactly.
It's a simple, honest profession, podcasting. That
exactly.
is.
We're writers, basically. Yeah. I'm glad I'm off strike.
We're really just a critique of the field.
I can finally get in here and start writing material again.
It's been AI for months, since May, and now I can finally start writing the show.
I've been raw dogging it since May. I was in solidarity. I went on strike.
I guess the last major news story we got to talk about is crime. It's time for crime talk.
Rampant crime everywhere.
Crime's everywhere.
Crime is everywhere. Crime's in your home. It's nuts.
This is a story out of Philadelphia that you all may have heard about. Some people were bringing this up when we were covering the debate live, and I didn't really know what they were talking about. They said just Philadelphia crime, and I didn't know they were referring to what we're about to talk about right now. I thought it was just like nebulous.
Brought it up on the debate stage a little bit. They mentioned the Philly looting.
I thought it was just like the same nebulous, like New York is a crime-ridden hellhole as always. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like Democrat-run cities have all this crime, but no, it's actually a specific thing that they were referencing. So you all may have heard of the looting and the rioting that's been going on in Philadelphia recently. I wouldn't be surprised though if you were a little confused, because clearly I was. But a lot of the media has just been blasting images of broken windows, looted stores without really any context.
As they do.
And well, of course, especially local media, notorious for that. But I think we're here to give you some of that context.
Yeah, what is the context? 'Cause I'm not gonna lie, I knew that this was happening, and I just kind of thought it was a thing that happened. Yeah. And I'll get into why I thought it was a thing that happened, and didn't look much into it later when I talk about the broader political critique. But let's give some context.
Okay, I'm ready for the broad political critique. Yeah, I love those.
I love those. Love that.
Take all of this before we get into it though with a grain of salt, because a lot of the information is anything but clear right now, and our reporting is all based on the media and information that I've been able to find. And of course, we know how local media and even national media sensationalizes stories of crime.
Yeah.
So just keep all of that in mind. I've tried to parse through what I think is propaganda to like get to the meat of the story, but there's even things that I couldn't find when looking at all of this. So as of Friday last week, more than 60 people have been arrested in connection to looting incidents across the city of Philadelphia. The string of lootings began on Tuesday of last week, and a lot of the media is pinning it on social media influencer local to Philly known as Meatball. She apparently live streamed the looting and told people which shops were being hit. So all of this is kind of being blamed on this influencer named Meatball. The footage of the footage in question does show rioting, no question about it. There's obviously rioting and looting that's happening, but it seems like, from what I can tell, again, take it with a grain of salt, the rioting was already happening when this creator, Meatball, was like cheering it on, saying like, we're not going to starve, everybody's going to eat. I couldn't find the initial video calling for looting that the police department is saying incited all of this. So I'm not too sure what the connection is here, but this may just be information I'm missing out on. But again, I couldn't find the video, so I don't know. I'm not trying to be conspiratorial here. I honestly just couldn't find the information that I was looking for. But there's another important piece of information, vital.
Do tell.
I would say that the media in just about every story I found is claiming is not connected to the rioting, but I think it just might be. And it's the fact that a recent verdict was just dropped where a Philly judge dropped murder charges against police officer Mark Dial. Now, the story here is that back in August, Officer Mark Dial shot and killed Eddie Israeri, I think that's how you say his last name, at a traffic stop, routine traffic stop, after he was pulled over for driving the wrong way on a one-way street. Body camera footage shows that Eddie had a knife in his hand when he was asked to put his hands in the air, and he was shot 6 times by this officer, Mark Dial.
Okay, classic police brutality. Yeah.
Right, yeah, you already know our take. Cops cop should be able to know the difference between a knife and a gun before mag dumping on somebody. That's obviously going to be our take here, but this isn't really like the main part of the looting and rioting story that I want to talk about. But I think this might be connected, and why other stories I think have brought it up purposefully, is that Mark Dial's charges were dropped. He's not being charged with murder as of right now, which immediately sparked a peaceful protest later on the same day in the same city in Philly. Rioting started, looting started, and the city, the PD, media is all claiming these events aren't connected. But I feel like it wouldn't be surprising if they were, that? Right?
I mean, obviously we don't know anything concrete, but I feel like it's a pretty big leap to say that like, okay, peaceful protests are happening in the city over this one thing.
That is confirmed. Yeah, peaceful immediately happened. Yeah,
and riots just happened to happen in another part of the city, and also that ended up escalating into looting and more pandemonium in another part of the city. And these are all separate instances, and it has nothing to do with the police brutality that we may or may not want to cover.
Yeah, and it's like I feel like it's not a stretch to say that dropping murder charges against against a police officer for an obvious case of police brutality doesn't create, at the very least, the social conditions that could lead to looting and rioting. You know what I mean? Like we've seen this happen before in Minneapolis.
Yeah, exactly.
Like looting occurred after the death of George Floyd and others that were brutalized by the Minneapolis Police Department. And obviously it was connected to those incidents.
And it's like, when rioting happens, when things start to get a little crazy, bad actors are going to come in and they're going to misappropriate the original purpose of the event, and they're going to start taking advantage of it for their own gain.
Yeah, no, of course.
And it's going to happen to other people. It's mob mentality. Things like that are going to happen. But that brings me into like why I kind of just... I don't want to say I didn't know about the police brutality like connection before, but I didn't give a shit about this when I saw conservatives like posting the videos all over Twitter and talking about it on Twitter, because I kind of just never care, because looting is always a proxy for black person bad.
Yes.
Whenever these conservative accounts get on there and start tweeting about looting and start saying, oh, look at all these delinquents, it always just means look at these black people doing crime. Every time, 100% of the time. They never care to actually like look into anything clearly.
You know, as you said, like looting obviously is not a solution, or rioting or violence of really any kind against a city isn't going to be a solution for, say, a case of police brutality that's dropped and no accountability happens, right? It's not even optically good, as we talked about back when we talked more about Black Lives Matter and how it was often associated with violence and violent protests. It's not even like an optical victory that you can claim, but to hyper-focus and sensationalize the videos of violence occurring, of windows being broken, of things being stolen, rather than focusing on how it's merely, probably, in my estimation, an expression of anger and frustration with the city that continues to fail them, is just to say, yeah, look, black people rioting, black people bad.
Yeah, I will never talk about looting in any context outside of this like that, simply because all it serves to do is give more credence to conservative arguments about how black people are violent, BLM is violent, these people who are protesting police brutality, they're just violent and they hate cops and they want to destroy civilized society. That's all anyone will do when they hear looting, because it's the easy position to take. It's not a position you can really optically argue against, so I won't give them that credence.
It brings in the take that just says, like, why is it that the property that's stolen or damaged more important than the people that was the person that was literally executed by the police, right? Like, why is it that it is considered socially acceptable that this person is dead? They call it a tragedy, which of course it is. The PD always says that. Why is it that it's just accepted as like normal in the course of action for the police, but then the pursuant rioting, looting, anger that comes out of the city isn't also considered normal? Like it's just, whenever we talk about crime, we have to keep in mind that crime is a social phenomenon, and it is almost always motivated either by inciting incidents such as police doing something insane, or simply just wealth inequality. And unless we're going to do something, as it's a social phenomenon, offer social solutions and economic solutions to the problem, then we're not going to do anything. And it's certainly not a solution to just highlight sensationalized videos of people looting and rioting and saying like, oh, look at how awful Philadelphia is.
Exactly.
It doesn't do anything. You're not offering any solutions. You're just using it as a proxy for being racist.
Yeah. It's dumb.
Of course, again, we can't directly pin it on the police. Like, I don't have enough information to directly say that the verdict out of the Philly judge was the cause of the looting that occurred. But you could also make the argument that maybe it was indeed motivated by social media, right? Like, we have an example from, if you remember, from back in August, I think, the beginning of August, Kai Cenat caused
the
a mob in New York City because he said there'd be free PS5s. Like, it wouldn't be unheard of to say a social media influencer that is popular can cause a riot or a mob. Like, he did that, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like that's totally out of left field. But again, I have to urge you all to keep in mind that when we talk about crime, we're usually talking about socioeconomic conditions that motivate people, make people more likely to commit crime. And we shouldn't ever use this as just a chance to be reactionary.
And you always when you're looking at crime, when you're consuming, I don't know, pieces of news, pieces of media that talk about crime, you have to be hyper aware of racial dynamics, especially. I will remind you that a couple years ago, Breitbart had a page on their website titled Black Crime. That just went through and listed all the horrible things that black people did.
Yeah.
There are numerous people still to this day that I see on TikTok that only report about instances of black men killing white women. And you gotta look at that and think, what's happening here? Yeah. You can't consume these things individually. You can't consume these things outside of the broader political context. And the same goes for whenever something like this happens, whenever a looting incident happens.
Yeah. And like, my final point I'll make here is that rioting and looting and large-scale events that happen, such as the one we just covered, don't happen because things are just going well socially. Like, people that are like living comfortably, have everything they need to survive, don't just go and break into stores. Like, mobs don't come and break into stores and steal shit like that. It doesn't happen if we live in a just society. We need to, of course, there's got to be like punishments associated when crimes like this happen, but we need to look at the underlying socioeconomic causes of these events if we ever want to find a solution to them, which is not the conservative agenda. The conservative agenda is to rile you up by showing you these images and rely on your biases to motivate hate against people that live in cities, against people committing crimes in the videos that they're showing you, which is usually black people.
And it's also crazy when you think about the fact that a lot of the people that are associated with the looting were arrested. Were just arrested right after the event. But if we are going with this idea that this could be connected to the protests against the police brutality, the charges against the cop who killed someone were dropped. You can't ignore the optics of that right there. Yeah. It's palpable. It's clear as day what's going on and where people's priorities lie, especially the conservatives that talk about this stuff day in, day out, over and over again.
Yeah. So if you see more about the Philly looting, try to keep that all in mind. This is still a developing story. The mayor, who is a Democrat, the mayor of Philadelphia, said something about, like, he didn't say this verbatim, but bringing the hammer down, so to speak. You know what I mean? Like, these people got to be punished. These people got to be prosecuted, that kind of thing.
We have to make an example out of them so that more people don't go do stuff like this.
Of course, this is all besides the point that, like, violent crime is a red state problem anyway, per capita, but fucking whatever. But yeah, that sums up that story. So if you see that, be skeptical of people showing you these images. But I think we can jump into some extra news stories real quick before we leave the episode. I know it's been a long one, but we had a lot of news.
Exactly. You guys often beg for the long ones.
Yeah, plead for them even.
Plead for them.
Desire them. Think about them day and night. The first extra news story I had in here was that it was a bad week for Canada last week.
Yeah, it was.
I think over the past 2 weeks, actually. So the first thing is that Justin Trudeau came out and said that back in June, it's confirmed, according to him, that a Canadian citizen was assassinated by somebody in the Indian government, which I thought was crazy.
That's a wild thing to just come out with.
Nuclear superpowers, by the way. Crazy thing to say. The United States State Department has been participating in the investigations to some degree. But then the other reason it was a bad week for Canada is because the Speaker of Parliament for the Canadian Parliament had a... I'll frame this in a way, see if you all can guess what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The Speaker of the Canadian Parliament had a guy come in for some ceremony they were doing.
Yes.
And this guy received applause after Zelensky from Ukraine spoke. And he said, this man was a valiant soldier that fought against Russia from Ukraine back during World War II. If this doesn't immediately...
And they saluted him, yeah?
And they applauded him. If this doesn't immediately raise alarm bells in your head...
Who fought against Russia in World War II?
This guy was a part of the Waffen-SS. He was a Nazi back in World War II. And they applauded him after the Jewish president of Ukraine gave a speech. In a very non-American fashion, the House Speaker immediately resigned. So that's kind of sick.
That is cool. But I just don't know how you let that through.
I don't know.
Especially because, like, getting people approved to speak at events like that, doesn't it take, like, multiple layers of bureaucracy, multiple layers of approval?
Yeah.
I don't think you can just bring a guy on.
Trudeau said that the House Speaker organized this on his own. Like, Trudeau had nothing to do with this.
Wow.
Which could be just a cover-up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For the lack of oversight here. But yeah, I mean, even just from like a history standpoint, you got who was fighting Russia? If this guy comes to you or somebody finds him, someone on your staff finds him, like, yeah, he fought against Russia.
White guy fighting
just
against
like Ukraine
Russia.
is fighting against Russia. Like, you got to start to think, okay, was he a Nazi?
Yeah.
Like, because who was fighting? Like, who fought the Nazis the hardest? It was the Russians.
Let's find people who are really experienced with fighting against Russia, perhaps in major conflicts.
Yeah. Just a member of the SS, yeah.
Holy
so
shit,
it was a bad week for Canada as a whole. The other news story for a little bit of extras though is that New York is fucking underwater.
Yeah.
The pictures are crazy.
I saw the one picture. I don't know if we retweeted or something, but it was like was it a heat wave or like crazy haze? No, it was after the Canadian wildfires.
Yeah.
And New York was just orange and covered in haze.
Part of Detroit was just orange too, yeah.
Yeah, and then now it's just like covered in water, 3 months apart.
Yeah, no, New York is my city's going through it, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
I've seen some people like on the right side of the political spectrum come out and say like, oh, it's because New York is ran by Democrats and the infrastructure failed. If the infrastructure failed, why did that happen, dog?
What about the infrastructure bill that Joe Biden and the Democrats passed to the greatest investment in American infrastructure for our crumbling infrastructure?
Not only that, it's like this is obviously happening because of climate change, right? Extreme weather events become a lot more likely when as climate change continues to get worse. Infrastructure is going to fail because it's facing challenges that it hadn't before because climate change is occurring, or climate change is causing more disastrous weather events. And I think New York is flooded right now because of torrential downpour, which is it's an effect of climate change.
And it's like infrastructure has been routinely failing over the last couple of years because of climate change, and we've been warned about that climate change and how we should improve that infrastructure, and we've either refused to do it or blocked doing it.
Oh, yeah, and that's the thing is like, okay, let's have a nationwide investment into upgrading our infrastructure to combat the effects of climate change. Republicans would say no.
Yeah.
Let's weatherize everything. No.
They said, hold on, infrastructure is failing in New York, and that's why it's flooding, and that's why this climate change is becoming an issue. Let's fix it.
No.
Let's go ahead and fix it.
Not even besides the point that like Eric Adams is a Republican.
Oh my God! Yeah,
like
I don't know what it was. I saw 2 weeks ago, or like right before we recorded the last podcast. Somebody tweeted about the mayor of Houston, I think, or some city in Texas, just switched parties from Democrat to Republican, and people were celebrating like, "Oh, this is now the largest Republican mayor. He's the Republic." Like, I don't know how to fucking phrase it. Something about
largest city
mayor, in the U.S. governed by a Republican. I said, no, that's Eric Adams.
That's Eric Adams.
That's Eric Adams.
Well, just a few weeks ago, he was like, "There's too many immigrants coming in. New York City is going to collapse."
Yeah.
It's like he was taking it further than average Republicans do when they talk about the border. He was like, "It's up for New York City. We are losing our city to the mob. Everything is over. We have fully lost it. There's no hope."
I am deploying the NYPD to Mexico as we speak to engage in special operations. We have the NYPD fighting a battle on 2 fronts right now.
Yeah.
One in Mexico and one in our subways as we kill all of the homeless people here.
He was just complaining that like there's too many immigrants in homeless shelters or something like that. It's like you're trying to run a city here.
Yeah.
You got to pay attention to the people that are disadvantaged. Like, sorry, that's the job, dog.
And it's also like, why are you blaming them when Ken Paxton is busing them to you?
Yeah. Most vulnerable people on the planet. He's like, the city is lost. It's gone. We should abandon it. There's nothing we can do. It's game over. New York City is now Mexico City. It's over. Lost.
Ken Paxton is sending buses of migrants to New York City, and bro folded
immediately. Yeah. It's only been a few months since that happened, or maybe like just about a year since that started.
Almost a year. Yeah, I think it started happening in December.
Eric Adams just cracked under the pressure. We can't do this. The city is lost.
He's also a cop. Like, let's not forget that he's also a cop. And what was it? What was that video he did when he was running for election of he was running for some election or for
mayor?
something.
Was it when he was running for mayor?
I think it was before that, but people were talking about it when he was running for it. We talked about it, where he was like, this is how to go through your son's bag for drugs.
Yeah.
And he pulls a crack pipe out of some kid's backpack. Fake and stage. He's like, this is my son. He whips out a crack pipe. Fifth graders going crazy.
Eric Adams is one of my favorite American politicians. He's just so insane. I don't know what it is about New York and Florida just producing the craziest people on the planet.
I don't know how he is the mayor of New York City, frankly.
I know. I know the result of ranked choice voting in New York City. Yeah. It really just shows you that like the stronghold of actual like. No, I wouldn't say leftist, but more socially democratic policies is like the Midwest right now.
Yeah.
New York and California, of course, they're ran by Democrats, but most of those Democrats are just Republicans, but call themselves Democrats to win elections.
Incredibly milquetoast.
But in like the purple states or the bluish reds, the reddish blue states, you know what I'm saying? Like Michigan, Wisconsin, etc. The Democrats, when they get in power, they're reviving Karl Marx.
Literally. In Wisconsin, was it Wisconsin or Minnesota?
Minnesota.
It was Minnesota that went absolutely bonkers.
They had a 1-seat majority.
As soon as they got a 1-seat majority, they passed, I don't know, everything good.
Yep.
Free school lunch. Michigan, we get a trifecta. We repeal right to work. We also have, I think, free school lunch throughout the entire state now.
Oh, sick.
And a bunch of other shit.
Yeah.
We protect abortion rights. And then New York and California are just doing the same things they've always done.
Nothing.
Nothing. They can do anything they want, and they just do nothing.
It's so sick. The Midwest is where to be.
Exactly.
Especially as the climate crisis progresses and we have access to fresh water.
Flyover state who?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Not
Michigan
us.
right here. We got the largest access to fresh water. We're done. You're all done for.
Exactly. Michigan supremacy. Stay where you are. I don't want my state to fall.
I'm going to use, all of the massive amounts of Hiddo money that we make to invest in real estate along the Great Lakes so that eventually when that's the only freshwater source in the world, I'll have it monopolized.
I'm fencing it off. Walls work.
If walls work, that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to put shipping containers all around it. I'm going to have massive straws that only I can drink from, and you're all done for unless you give me more money.
That's the Socialist Republic of Michigan.
That's right.
I'm trying to build it in my backyard.
Flyover state who?
All right. I think that brings us to the end of this episode. And we did... I did recently update the Patreon list.
Okay.
It's been a minute since I went name for name.
Yes.
And updated it based on who's here and who's not. So if you don't hear your name, let us know.
Yell at us.
And you know what? If you want to be a good Samaritan, if you do hear your name and maybe you left recently, let us know. But I would imagine those people would just take the freebie.
100%.
But I've tried to update it to reflect accurately who's on the Patreon.
So for all our new patrons and old alike, I bet you're eager to know who's on the list.
Exactly.
Who's on this
Who made the cut?
exclusive list, who's making the cut. So let me tell you, special thanks to Caden Kraut, Lord T the Radiant, Chris the Postman, Christy Beck, 40% Spite, Dylan B, Andrew Harris, Mike Chaplinsky, Mattias T, Omar Zuno, Clayton LaFed, Mark Yeager, Kaz, Caleb, Caleb, Joy.
Oh my God.
I got into the
Butchered
rhythm
it.
that I used to be in. And I almost put in a name that's not there anymore.
Oh my
Caleb
God.
Joy, Rich Taro, Tari, Gavin Air Maldonado, Hunter W, Fergalaki, Max Vezquez, Jacob Rogers, Colton Mooberry, Fixer Punk, Jim Egbers, Jeff Muzzy, Bagel Burrito, Cincy Alex, Joe Stenstrom, Adrian Sandoval, Chloe Sam 601, Colleen Cuts, Gregory Isn't My Name, Veryuk, Jennifer DeVoe, Big Bird Titty, Crawfishin, Bennett Bennington III, Alexia Benanti, Nietzsche, Big Booty Beatdown, Moises T, Sam Maloney, Two-Headed Boy, Ben Shapiro's boyfriend, Jonathan Cassis, Luke O'Shea, Cucker Tarlson, Danielle Jackson, The Word of Microsoft, Jennifer Sines, Aaron and His Gundam Gundams, Darth Father, Aiden Taylor, Corey Chambers, Sewer Snack, Ellie N.,
John Glover, Devin Hatchard, Retro Mondo, Meatball Minion, Emma the Dude Slayer, Claire McMillan, Breezy B, Veronica, aka V, Raxon, Ash Smith, The Grotler, Magic Ian 95, Flower Clown, Beetlebugs, Three Crows in a Trench Coat, Slavic and Sapphic, Casey Lynn Kelly, Snake Eyes, and Hope of Giants, AK Gone, Aquana Don, Zach Lantian, Info Russell, Austin Greif, Marcus Corbett, Caleb Rober, Taylor Renstock, Ishi Teddy, Cammy, Calliope, Reagan Not Like the President, Pagan Jester, Tylen Freeman, Steak Daddy, Tay, Isaac Hodges, Madeline C, Pab the Pab 69, Kayla Lowe, Anna Volinick, Eduardo Diaz, Casey C, Say Yes to Wes, August, Natalie Valinsky, Particular Pickman, Mason Crack, Jeff Sines, Howard the Duck, Brendan Is Egg, JR, Drew Batchilder, and my mom. Thank you all so much for supporting the show on Patreon. If I butchered any of the new patron names, you got to let me know.
You know exactly what to do.
I hope you reach out and let me know. Some of these patrons been here since since day one. If I could borrow a lyric from my favorite creator.
That's what I'm saying. You're not boo-boo.
You're the greatest of all time, actually.
Exactly.
Thank you to all of you that have been with us since the jump. Couldn't do it without you. And thank you to everyone that may be new.
Everyone that's been here, all the OGs, the Hiddo heads, and anyone that's joined along the way.
Exactly.
We appreciate all your support.
Couldn't do it without you. Thanks for listening to the episode.
Have a great one.
Catch y'all later.